It's a crowded race. There's nearly a dozen candidates hoping to win the Democratic primary this November. The winner would then move on to the special election in January that would finally fill the late Alcee Hastings seat in Congress. It's an impossible feat to replace the longtime representative, but many are willing to try. Earlier this week, I spoke to one of the candidates, Sheila Cherfilus McCormick. Here's what she had to say. Sheila, it's great to have you on NBC6 Impact and great to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
It's our pleasure. So, you're running for legendary Alcee Hastings' seat, and you're one of a large group of candidates running for this seat. Why do you think you should be the next congressperson for District 20?
Well, I've been a native District 20er for more than 30 years, and in that capacity, I've been a mom in the district, I've been a single parent, I've went to school, I've gone through a lot of the experiences that people in District 20 have gone through, but most importantly, I've overcome. And I think we need a champion in Congress who has overcome, who actually understands what people are going through, but who also has experience in Congress, advocating, lobbying, just really pushing the envelope to ensure that our district is seen and heard.
In 2018, you ran in the primary?
I did.
And you lost?
Yes.
What lessons did you learn from that you can bring to the table now?
Well, I learned that the district is very emotional and it's very tight-knit. And so everything's about relationship. How do you know them? What are your experiences? You know, Alcee Hastings was great, and everyone had a personal experience with him. So I knew if you're going to run in this district, you have to be on the ground, creating relationships, and really understanding the people so you can represent them accurately.
Are you still self-funding, or is it a combination, or how is the campaign getting the money?
It's a combination. When I started, I put in a substantial amount to make sure we had a budget to cover us all the way through, but we definitely do get small dollar donations, and we have a lot of support.
You have said that you're running as a progressive, on progressive values. What does that mean to you?
Well, progressive values are values that actually change our everyday lives. And if we're looking at our district and what we're suffering, even as a nation, this is the first time that we're ever combating a COVID crisis, a pandemic, economic downturn. And these things take more of a new approach and more progressive ideas that actually touch and concern families, working families, and just everyone right now who's trying to come out the pandemic successfully.
Something that I've read over and over again that you have said is that you can't have social justice without economic justice. So how do you plan on making that happen?
Well, we have to have more legislation that actually deals with our district and our actually systematic being withheld from being economic leaders. For instance, I have a People's Prosperity Plan in which it's an economic stimulus check for people in the district. But working class families and everyone who's making less than $75,000 but who's over the age of 18, which is important because we need to make sure that everyone has a chance at recovery. Right now we find a lot of people who lost their jobs to automation still don't have a job. There's other people who lost their jobs because of COVID or they're sick and they have chronic issues where they have no income. But most importantly, we have a large amount of elderly people who don't have enough money to even sustain eating on a regular basis. During COVID, we were able to feed more than 5,000 elderly people. We were able to give out more than 10,000 meals to families and even direct them towards health insurance. So after seeing that and seeing how we suffered, I felt like we needed a policy that we can write and we can draft so the first day of Congress we can hit the ground running for the people. And so that's why I pushed the People's Prosperity Plan. In addition to that, we have so many small businesses that is really the legacy of our district and the legacy of us. And so we need to help those small businesses acquire more funding, federal contracts, and grants. And I believe with those two policies, we can really see an economic shift in our district, which is the precipice of our change. I believe that Alcee Hastings did a lot of great things, but right now in this climate, we're on the precipice of change, and it has to be an economic one. And that is tied to social inclusion, social justice, and ensuring that everyone who, even immigrants, so daughter immigrants like myself, has an opportunity to succeed.
You talked about small businesses, and of course that is really the heart of any city. How can you stimulate the economy in this time? As you say, we've been going through a pandemic and so many people are hurting. You said that a lot of people are having trouble just making ends meet. So in addition to the prosperity plan, how do you stimulate the economy to get people back to work?
Well, I'm a daughter of immigrants, and when I went after law school, I went to a small business and I helped change the trajectory of the small business. And what I did is I started preparing us to get more federal contracts. I started preparing us when we created a vocational school. We started educating the population. And we saw our business expand exponentially. And that's what we have to focus on. There's a lot of money that's going through the government directly to the people. We see with the infrastructure bill. We see with even the money that's coming out for COVID. If we can help our small businesses actually acquire those federal contracts and those grants, if we can help them have funding so now they can cover their bills until they're paid back, then we'll see that we have that kind of growth. And I'm not just saying this from an aspirational standpoint, but these are everything that I have done. We've created a small group where we have black businesswomen who put in an investment group, and we actually put in at least $100,000 to help other small businesses. During COVID, during President Biden's Minority Mission Program, we were the #1 black business owner that was actually doing vaccinations throughout the whole state. We created over 1,200 jobs at that time, and no one was getting paid less than $20 an hour. And that was just through acquiring federal funding and filling that gap, that void of being the voice and helping us connect resources directly to the community. So if we can help small businesses at this time step in and do the vaccination education, which we know is needed, if we can have small businesses step in right now and manage some of our infrastructure projects, then we'll start to see that our district now is not one of dependency, where we have the highest unemployment, the highest poverty rates, but now we'll have a district that is sustainable, where we're now creating jobs and we're hiring people from the district, and that's how we change the trajectory of our district.
You said you're a daughter of immigrants.
Yes.
And there is a crisis right now at the border going on. And if you're in Washington, you would have some major votes on the immigration issue, which has been problematic for so many administrations in this country, to solve the immigration situation in this country. There's a large Haitian community in South Florida. Many of the people that we're seeing on the border are Haitian. So what would be your plan to put in place to solve the situation right now that's happening?
Well, as a Haitian American, what I see going on is heartbreaking, and it's very reminiscent of what I saw growing up as a little girl, when we saw rules that were wet foot, dry foot, that totally left Haitian people out. And I find ourselves here again where we have these policies that really aren't equitable, because all we're asking is for Haitian people to have a fair chance at proving a critical fear, or a fair chance at even getting humanitarian parole. So one of the biggest things I'll be pushing is for us to stop using Title 42 to exploit or to export Haitian people from the country or even at the border, but for us to start moving towards giving fair hearings and the ability for them to actually have humanitarian parole. TPS has been a huge issue in the United States, and it's a continuous one because we really have not created a pathway to citizenship. And so we really do have to change all of our immigration policies to make them less subjective and more objective.
And how do you do that?
Well, you write it in, right? One of the biggest ways we do that in Congress is by using the power of the pen. In the last 10 years, when I've been advocating in DC about different issues, that's what we did. We sat down, we talked about, okay, how can we help this bill? How can we write an amendment? How can we actually write in the district? And that's what we need to do, just write it in specifically. These standards of subjectiveness that these immigrants can come, or constantly change it, but we have to really hold them to the fire when it comes to everyone gets a hearing. Let's ensure everyone's getting hearing, because they're not right now. They're just being expelled. When we say that everyone has a right for political asylum, let's stick to that. But most importantly, let's look at the relationship that we've had with Haiti. A lot of other countries have had great relationships with the United States and been there in the time of need for the United States. Haitians also, and Haiti has been there for the United States in time of needs. Haiti and Haitians have helped the United States fight several wars. So why aren't we given an opportunity to have a different policy that actually recognizes the assistance and is fair for us?
When you open up the immigration issue, not only to Haitians, but to so many others that are trying to get into this country, how would you mold the immigration policy in that direction?
Well, I think first thing we have to do is really that pathway to citizenship. As long as we have TPS issues of extension or non-extension and not have a real pathway to citizenship that's a federal pathway, then we're going to see a lot of this disparate treatment for different groups depending on where you come from. And that's what we're experiencing now. And the thing about it that makes it very heartbreaking is that if you are an immigrant that's coming from a black country, you are definitely treated much differently. And with all the turmoil in Haiti, especially when it comes to the assassination, then after that you had the earthquake. Why is it that we're choosing once again to turn our backs on a country that helped us? So we have to actually take a hard look in the mirror and ask ourselves as a nation, why do we treat black minorities so different? Why do we treat brown minorities so different than other minorities? And then we can get to the root of creating a more equitable system.
For those that don't know much about you, because you went to law school, obviously we talked about you being a daughter of immigrants, and you are a business owner, a parent, a wife. When you blend all of those things together, why do you think that would make you the appropriate candidate to represent District 20?
Well, I think my experiences are not unique to the people in my district. When I graduated from Howard University, even before I went to Howard University, I was told that I wasn't going to be successful in college, so I should just go to community college. But there was something in me that said, no, we can do it. And I fought through that, and I went to Howard University, and I was successful. I did well. And when I got into business and I took over the healthcare company, they told me that we would never be able to turn it around, and I did. We were able to gross more than $20 million a year. So every time they told us we couldn't do it, because of the love and the support of the district, I was able to do it. And I believe that there's a lot of people in this district who just want an opportunity. Because as I read and people talk about our district, saying that it's destitute, or that it's desolate, or there's nothing coming from there, I know that's not the truth of our district. And so right now, we need someone who can go to Congress and do everything they said they can do. And right now, I have been the only one in this race to really create economic change, to really create jobs, to even help small businesses. So all I'm asking is for the opportunity to do what I've done before, now do it in Congress. I'm asking for me to take my results and bring it here into the district and now have a district that's a rising tide. Not just certain segments, but our entire district now to start rising, and for us to see, not be the ones who have the highest poverty rates. Now let's say we have the most economic growth. Let's say we have the most businesses that have grown. Let's talk about now our district, which is full of women who have one of the highest number of business women, who have businesses that are flourishing, and we have women on boards, and now we see ourselves differently.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
That's a great message.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.